Welcome. Today we are going to hear a presentation by Desiree Holmes Scherini. She's recognized as a top hypnotherapist in Washington, D.C. by 3 best-rated and top docs, and was awarded Outstanding Transpersonal Contribution as a hypnotherapist from the National Association of Transpersonal Hypnotherapists in 2018. She has a degree in psychology and a higher diploma in theosophy from the Theosophical Society in England. She's a board-certified clinical transpersonal hypnotherapist in practice since 2012. Other specialty certifications include neurolinguistic programming, past life hypnosis, life between lives spiritual regression, Reiki Meister, Lishan healing, certified medium, and Dowser and other modalities for client success. She's the author of Journey to Joy, The Written Path, and hosts the podcast and YouTube show Intuitive Journey with Desiree. She's also an artist and arts instructor. She has a passion for learning and sharing what she has learned, and she has been for several years a member of our DC Lodge. So I welcome you, Desiree, and I invite you to share your screen. I still can't see your screen. So just go to, okay. Okay, so we are very happy that you're going to give a talk on a theosophical topic on the Fohat, which is very interesting, fascinating, and sometimes challenging. So go ahead, share your screen, and then we go from there.
Thank you. And I'm kind of new to PowerPoints, so this is my second one. So as I find where to start to play it, slideshow. No, I know I need to go to start.
You haven't shared it yet. We still don't see it.
I know that's because I don't want you to see me fumbling around before it's actually up. So I am slideshow. I know there's a button where it says, here it is, from beginning. All right, now I will share my screen, which means I have to hop back over here to Zoom. So I want to preface this by saying that I know that you guys all probably know way more about this than I do. So
I don't think so. I think that you will present, and then I'm sure there will be questions. Okay, so now is the PowerPoint up, but you still have to do the slideshow. So click on slideshow again, and then say from the beginning. There, yes, click.
And I think I have to go over here to make it safe.
No, you just go back. You just click on slideshow, and then it comes up.
Told you I'm new at this. Fohat. There it goes. Slideshow.
Okay. Slideshow.
Okay. And will that make
this here on the beginning? Yes.
There we go. Are you ready?
Click on it.
There we go.
You are there, and I'm going to mute myself now. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, hop in anytime it looks like I need help. Okay, so what I had a real interest in Fohat, and in particular, this presentation was interest in the basis of, what the Secret Doctrine mostly has to say about Fohat. I go through several quotes out of the Secret Doctrine on talking about Fohat, and then I want to move it into examples of Fohat in our that we might not be thinking of. And then in particular, in person, where is Fohat in ourselves? Because it is as above, so below, micro and macro, or vice versa. So just going forward with this, I'm going to just, I pulled out several quotes about what is Fohat. And I don't know how to make that little Desiree talking thing go away. Maybe I can do this, but no, that's probably as good as it gets. Okay, according to Madame Blavatsky, Fohat is one of the most, if not the most, important character in esoteric cosmogony. It is the animating principle electrifying every atom into life. It is through Fohat that the ideas of the universal mind are impressed upon matter, its cosmic electricity, including intelligence. He is the steed and the thought is the rider. He lifts his voice and calls the innumerable sparks, atoms, and joins them together. Then Fohat is transformed into that force which brings together the elemental atoms and makes them aggregate and combine. He is 1 and 7, and on the cosmic plane is behind all such manifestations as light, heat, sound, adhesion, etc., and is the spirit of electricity, which is the life of the universe. He builds them in his likeness of older wheels, placing them on the imperishable centers. How does Fohat build them? The wheels. He collects the fiery dust. He makes balls of fire, runs through them and round them, infusing life thereinto, then sets them into motion, some one way, some the other way. They are cold, he makes them hot. They are dry, he makes them moist. They shine, he fans and cools them. Thus acts Fohat from one twilight to the other during 7 eternities. The spark hangs from the flames by the finest thread of Fohat. It journeys through the 7 worlds of Maya. Mohat, I'm making up a new word. Fohat runs the Manuses or Dhyani Chohan's errands and causes the ideal prototypes to expand from without, these to cross gradually on a descending scale all the planes from the noumenon to the lowest phenomenon, to bloom finally on the last into full objectivity, the acme of illusion or the grossest matter. And I'll kind of interject here that the reading that we were just doing always seems to tie in so well to the presentations. And this was just talked about, the objectivity there was one quote earlier in our member meeting about things coming into the grossest matter from the idea. Fohat hardens and scatters the 7 brothers, which means that the primordial electric entity, for the Eastern occultists, insists that electricity is an entity, electrifies into life and separates primordial stuff or pregenetic matter into atoms, themselves the source of all life and consciousness. There exists a universal agent unique of all forms and of life that is called Od, Ob, and Hour, active and passive, positive and negative, like day and night. It is the first light in creation. From Eliphas Levi's Kabbalah, the first light of the primordial Elohim, the atom, male and female, or scientifically, electricity and life. And I wasn't familiar with these terms, Od, Ob, and Hour, if I'm saying that right. So I added finding these in the Secret Doctrine. Od is the pure life-giving light or magnetic fluid. Ob, the messenger of death used by the sorcerers, the nefarious evil fluid. And I thought that was interesting, the term evil in there. And perhaps after this, we can have some discussion around these terms. Hour is the synthesis of the 2, astral light proper. Again, Od is a term used by Reichenbach to denominate the vital fluid. It is also a Tibetan word meaning light, brightness, and radiance. So the ancients represented it by a serpent, for Fohat hisses as he glides hither and thither in zigzags. The Kabbalah figures it with the Hebrew letter Teth, whose symbol is the serpent, which played such a prominent part in the mysteries. Its universal value is 9, for it's the 9th letter of the alphabet and the 9th door of the 50 portals or gateways that lead to the concealed mysteries of being. It is the magical agent par excellence and designates in Hermetic philosophy life infused into primordial matter, the essence that composes all things and the spirit that determines their form. Fohat, then, is the personified electric vital power, the transcendental binding unity of all cosmic energies, on the unseen as on the manifested planes, the actions of which resemble immense scale, that of a living force created by will, in those phenomena where the seemingly subjective acts on the seemingly objective and propels it into action. Fohat is not only the living symbol and container of that force, but is looked upon by the occultist as an entity. The forces he acts upon being cosmic, human, and terrestrial, and exercising their influence on all those planes respectively. On the earthly plane, his influence is felt in the magnetic and active force generated by the strong desire of the magnetizer. On the cosmic, it is present in the constructive power that carries out in the formation of things from the planetary system down to the glowworm and simple daisy. The plan in the mind of nature, or the divine thought, with regard to the development and growth of that special thing, he is metaphysically the objectivized thought of the gods, the word made flesh. On a lower scale, and on the messenger of cosmic and human ideations, the active force in universal life. In his secondary aspect, Fohat is the solar energy, the electric vital fluid, and the preserving fourth principle, the animal soul of nature, so to say, or, again, electricity. So then as I said, I wanted to, look at that and find, what does she call Fohat? What is it? Is it, we all know this idea of energy, but specifically she talks about electricity and magnetism, and that nothing happens until the idea comes. The idea and then the word, which I would say it's frequency, activates or combines with Fohat to create something that we can see in the objectivized. So it's up here, and then it becomes creation. So on a bigger picture, I thought, something came to mind, and I'm like, oh, some of these things sounded so familiar, and I thought, well, what's an example of Fohat? And I thought, what about black holes? And the expanding and contracting of the web, the world stuff or atoms, expresses here the pulsatory movement, where it's the regular contraction and expansion of the infinite and shoreless ocean of that which we may call the noumenon of matter, emanated by Swahabhat. I'm not great with these words, but which causes the universal vibration of atoms. But it's also suggestive of something else. It shows that the ancients were acquainted with that which is now the puzzle of many scientists, and especially of astronomers, with that which is now the cause of the first ignition of matter, or the world stuff. The paradox of the heat produced by the refrigerative contraction and other such cosmic riddles. Now I'm quoting directly Blavatsky here. And so when I was thinking about this, like the idea of a black hole came to mind. And when this says the, pulsating movement, contraction and expansion, we think about these different realities or these different parallel universes. And of course, the black hole, it's just, it's energy, it's condensed energy. It's like things go in, and then on the other side, I can imagine that it is a new, universe being created potentially. Of course, we don't know from this side, but it points unmistakably to a knowledge by the ancients of such phenomena. There is heat internal and heat external in every atom, says the manuscript commentaries, to which the writer has had access. The breath of the Father or Spirit, and the breath or heat of the Mother, matter. And they give explanations which show that the modern theory of the extinction of the solar fires by loss of heat through radiation is erroneous. The assumption is false even on the scientist's own admission. For as Professor Newcomb points out, by losing heat, a gaseous body contracts, and the heat generated by the contraction exceeds that which it has to lose in order to produce the contraction. I won't try to explain that. It just, someplace up here, it's making a lot of sense, and I'm not sure how well I could express that in my own words. Continuing, this paradox that a body gets hotter as the shrinking produced by its getting colder is greater led to long disputes. The surplus of heat, it was argued, was lost by radiation, and to assume that the temperature is not lowered pari passu with a decrease of volume under a constant pressure is to set at naught the law of Charles, the nebular theory Winchell. Contraction develops heat, it is true, but contraction from cooling is incapable of developing the whole amount of heat at any time existing in the mass, or even of maintaining a body at a constant temperature. Professor Winchell tries to reconcile the paradox, only a seeming one in fact, as Homer Lanes provides by suggesting something besides heat. May it not be, he asks, simply a repulsion among the molecules which varies according to some law of the distance? But even this will be found irreconcilable unless this something besides heat is ticketed causeless heat, the breath of fire, the all-creative force, plus absolute intelligence, which physical science is not likely to accept. However, maybe the reading of this stanza shows it, notwithstanding its archaic phraseology, to be more scientific than even modern science. So previously she mentioned electricity and a bit of electromagnetism, and I'm borrowing this little video that's about 3 minutes long from YouTube from National Geographic, because I decided they could explain this a little better than I can, so we're going to have to probably listen to an ad before this plays as I go to this link. Let's just make sure you buy your insurance. So apologies there.
Well, we don't see, I mean, you're back on.
Sorry.
Okay.
Hang on. You're not seeing the video?
No.
Okay, hang on. Here's what I have to do. I'll have to hop around a bit here then. I will have to share screen again as I play that. Let me put it on here. Sorry about that. I was hoping it would I had the link in the program, and I was hoping that, one moment. Wait, I went too far. Actually, let me just pause here a second. That worked well.
So just
Now it's stuck in the screen.
Yeah, just we don't see anything. So you haven't shared your screen yet. So you need to share again and then try to find that browser, in whichever browser you have that link.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. What's funny is I can't get out of my PowerPoint.
Just
Okay.
open another browser and go to YouTube. And
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I can't find my. I'm stuck in my screen. Help! I've fallen in my screen.
Push on escape. If you push on escape, you should be able to get out of the full screen.
Thank you. I was stuck in my screen and I couldn't find the bar where I could escape. So this Zoom world is okay. It's new and different. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and share screen. Okay, I'm going to share screen. I'm going to optimize the screen sharing. Then I'm going to go to that video.
Yeah, just remember which browser if you have several browsers.
Thank you very much. Okay, here we go. So does anyone have any comments, questions before I move on to this part? No? Okay,
Well, the only thing I wanted to add is it's so interesting that Ed, go ahead. You go first.
Too many questions to ask.
Oh, well, you know what? I left a lot of time for discussion at the end. So what I'm going to do is bring up stuff and then hope that like some people have some ideas, thoughts, and maybe even more knowledge about, what they've learned in the years that you've been studying. So.
Well, I was just, I did not realize. So Eliphas Levi, we know, has been mentioned often in the Secret Doctrine. And because he came up with astral light, that is sometimes astral light, sometimes Akasha in the Theosophical sense. But Levi admitted freely that this astral light, that he gave it this name, has been discovered before. And one of them was this Odd or Odic force that you mentioned. And it was actually the German Baron Karl von Reichenbach, and even Mesmer, which I'm sure you know since you're a hypnotherapist, also said that. Yeah, so it's so interesting. Okay, good. Yeah. So we still don't see your screen.
Okay, so here we go. I'm just going to play this little video because like I said, there's no way I can explain it. It's like about 3 minutes explaining electromagnetism from the National Geographic. And I thought it might be helpful before we go on to that part of it. So I've got that. And share. All right.
Forces of nature.
Let me go back. Okay, everyone can see it now, right?
Yes, we can. And I'll mute myself now.
Electromagnetism, or the electromagnetic force, is one of the 4 fundamental forces of nature. It generates light and energy and holds atoms, matter, and the world as we know it together. Electromagnetism is a branch of physics that studies the interactions between electric and magnetic fields. All matter has an electric charge, which can be positive, negative, or zero. Opposite charges attract, while like charges repel. These electric forces bring and hold atoms together. And when atoms gain a positive or negative charge through the transfer of electrons, a measurable electric field will form. If those electrically charged particles start to move, the field will become a flowing electric current and form a magnetic field around it. Under the right circumstances, interacting electric and magnetic fields can continuously produce and sustain one another. This generates an electromagnetic field that transmits waves of electromagnetic energy or radiation into space. The intensity of this radiation is determined by its frequency. These frequencies make up what's known as the electromagnetic spectrum. Near the middle of the spectrum is visible light, such as light emitted by stars, fireflies, and computer screens. On either side are invisible electromagnetic waves. On one end are long, low-frequency radio waves that broadcast television and radio signals, microwaves that carry telephone signals and cook food, and infrared waves emitted by fires. On the other are short, high-frequency wavelengths, ultraviolet, X, and gamma radiation. Unlike low-frequency waves, these waves can pass through the human body, making them useful for medical applications. While electromagnetism has daily applications, it's also the engine that drives the planet as a whole. Thousands of miles below the Earth's surface, a layer of liquid metals churn and flow. This generates electric currents that then produce magnetic fields that all together encompass the entire planet. Called a geodynamo, this process causes Earth's poles to attain positive and negative charges, turning the planet into a giant electromagnet. This phenomenon also creates a protective layer around the planet. It shields us from the most harmful radiation in space, leaving us to enjoy a world held together by the strange and fundamental force of electromagnetism.
Now, how to get out of there. I will come back to you all. And stop share. All right, so I thought that was pretty useful for a short explanation. And even still, they call it this strange and unusual force that even though they can say they understand it, it's maybe not necessarily understood. Okay, so I'm going to continue with the presentation and try to get out of, every time I touch something it wants to show it. Okay, share screen, back to Fohat. And where I left off was here. I'll find it though. Sorry, there we go.
I think it was one. Yeah. Okay. And then slideshow, and then from current slide. Good.
I think I got it. Y'all, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. So moving along, after that, what is electromagnetism? I want to introduce that. Now I'm going to get into how is that active now within us. So as you know, we understand everything is a replication of everything else, like even down to the smallest atom. According to Theosophy, we are mimic everything from the biggest to the smallest. So my interest with my work in particular, when people talk about manifesting or talk about mind power or talk about the power of the heart, which I've discussed with you all before, that what is it in us that is the same as that Fohat that could create universes, and how do we create within ourselves? So this is where I kind of shift, is like, how do we do that? How do we have power of creation within ourselves? And as well, for example, what was it that was being used when Madame Blavatsky would precipitate something, which is like basically manifest something? What was it that she was doing? What is it that we all have the power to do? And especially if we could understand that power, use it for good. So I thought about psychokinesis, precognition, and telekinesis. So psychokinesis is movement of physical objects by the mind without use of physical means. Precognition is clairvoyance relating to an event or state not yet experienced. Telekinesis is the production of motion in objects without contact or other physical means. So each of those things has something that happens without touching it, without being able to be near it. And of course, there is somehow a vehicle for information or even for the power of movement. Fohat, in its various manifestations, is the mysterious link between mind and matter, the animating principle electrifying every atom into life. Blavatsky. What is magic and manifesting? This is from Isis and Vale. The cornerstone of magic is an intimate, practical knowledge of magnetism and electricity, their qualities, correlations, and potencies. Especially necessary is a familiarity with their effects. To manifest is to make evident or certain by showing or displaying. Manifestation is something that is put into your physical reality through thought, feelings, and beliefs. And the root word manifest is mentioned over 500 times in the Secret Doctrine. So, once again, there's the idea, the ideal, the thought, and then the object, and what's between those two. And what's between those two is that electricity, that electromagnetism. And here again is where I talk about the macrocosm and microcosm of Fohat. And I pull out some references from Yogananda, which I thought made sense here. The king, well, this is from Luke, but it was via him. The kingdom of God cometh not with observation, neither shall they say, lo here or lo there, for behold, the kingdom of God is within you. That what is there is here. Material objects cognized as sensations of sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch are constituted of a play of forces originating and existing beyond the observational capabilities of human consciousness. The incipient origin of all material forms and material vibrations lies in cosmic consciousness. Matter is condensed physical energy. Physical energy is condensed astral energy, and astral energy is condensed prototypic thought force of God. Hence, cosmic consciousness lies hidden within and behind the layers of matter, physical energy, astral energy, and thought or consciousness. So where is our Fohat? In Gnosticism and other Western mystical traditions, the divine spark is the portion of God that resides within each human. Professor John Joe McFadden claims the electromagnetic field produced by the brain's neurons is what produces our experience of human consciousness. The scientist has demonstrated how matter becomes aware and manages to think. The professor suggests in his new paper that electricity lies at the very core of what constitutes consciousness. And he proposes that the result of this electro system is what drives free will and all of our voluntary actions. He says this energy field is created by the very messages which constitute a person, a byproduct of every thought, movement, and process. Phenomena and materialization. Phenomena is related to psychic and occult manifestations, which, though regarded as miracles by the masses, are in reality manifestations of natural law. Blavatsky qualifies the different kinds of phenomena with several adjectives, such as physical, psychic, mental, occult, and spiritual. Electricity as a fluid or atomic matter, for occultists hold with Maxwell that it is atomic, is ever, though invisibly, present in the air and manifests under various shapes, but only when certain conditions are present to materialize the fluid, when it passes from its own onto our plane and makes itself objective. So Madame Blavatsky explains it. In a report of a conversation that Charles Johnston maintained with HPB, we read, Johnson says, "They say that you wrote them yourself," talking about some letters, "that they bear your evident marks of your handwriting and style. What do you say to that?" She says, "Let me explain it this way," she answered after a long gaze at the end of her cigarette. "Have you ever made experiments in thought transference? If you have, you must have noticed that the person who receives the mental picture very often colors it or even changes it slightly with his own thought. And this is where perfectly genuine transference of thought takes place. Well, it's something like that with the precipitated letters. One of our masters, who perhaps does not know English, and of course has no English handwriting, wishes to precipitate a letter. In answer to a question sent mentally to him, let us say he's in Tibet while I am in Madras or London. He has the answering thought in his mind, but not in English words. He has first to impress that thought on my brain, or on the brain of someone else who knows English, and then take the word forms that rise up in that other brain to answer the thought. Then he must form a clear mind picture of words in writing, also drawing on my brain, or the brain of whoever it is, for the shapes. Then either through me or some cella with whom he is magnetically connected, he has to precipitate these word shapes on paper, first sending the shapes into the cella's mind and then driving them on into the paper, using the magnetic force of the cella to do the printing and collecting the material, black or blue or red, as the case may be, from the astral light. All things dissolve into the astral light. The will of the magician can draw them forth again. So he can draw forth colors of pigments to make the figure in the letter, using the magnetic force of the cello to stamp them in and guiding the whole by his own much greater magnetic force, a current of powerful will. So, is belief part of our power? So there she explains that it's the mind and a magnetic connection and a force of will. So bringing this down to personal power, to our own Fohat, and how we can affect ourselves and perhaps the world around us, is belief part of it, is our electromagnetism, something that we can call in with will and call in right thoughts or higher frequencies to be something beneficial to us and to the world around us. So I have this chart here. It's an electromagnetic signature of thoughts. I pulled this up. I didn't make this. All energy, thoughts and emotions too, we vibrate on a certain level, and the reason we need to look at this now is the vibration in which our earth is now vibrating. We need to adjust our level in order to feel good in the very near future. It's also important to be aware of vibrations when creating our own reality. Whether it's about health, wealth, or joy, it's about the law of attraction. Of course, we hear manifesting, the law of attraction. It's all really about the same thing. It's about having the right thought and its vibration, and then using our own electromagnetic force to bring that vibration into our material world. And here you can see enlightenment, peace, compassion, joy, love are very high, and fear, grief, apathy, guilt, shame are low. And actually anger, just as a segue here, anger is actually going up to, is better than guilt, shame, and apathy. To be angry is better than not caring. So that's just a little tidbit there. When you're getting angry, you're activating a change and moving up. So you need to just keep going if you're angry. I thought this was interesting too, vibrational frequencies. The human body is between 62 to 78 megahertz. Essential oils, you can see some of them go very high. Lotus oil, rose oil, I don't know the numbers right off the top, but they have often been used to, say, influence personal frequency. Praying will raise your frequency by 15 millihertz. Colds and flu start at 57 to 60. Your heart is between 67 to 70 millihertz. Disease starts at 58 millihertz. Cancer is at 42 millihertz. A negative thought brings you down by 12 millihertz. A positive thought brings you up by 10 millihertz. And death begins at 25 millihertz. So here's a picture of a quantum vortex. One of the things that's often referred to is that vortex. And if you think of the vortex, like you've got your astral up here, it's not material, and there's a vortex. And from the astral, you can drop things in to the vortex, which is Fohat, to bring it, to flow it down, almost like a funnel will flow down, and that thought will just flow around, being affected by Fohat into the material world. So when people say, put it into your vortex, or it's in the vortex, it means it's up here, it's not materialized yet. And the more being aware of and knowing what you're putting into your vortex with the will, but not with the force necessarily, can bring it down. So whatsoever quits the Laya state becomes active life. It is drawn into the vortex of motion, the alchemical solvent of life. Spirit and matter are the two states of the one, which is neither spirit nor matter, both being the absolute life and latent. And that is the end of that presentation. I have a few things to comment on as I get out of here and stop sharing my screen. And I'm back, I think. So to follow that up with, in my interest in Fohat was spurred on, well, it's interesting anyway, but it was mostly spurred on by my personal interest in what is manifesting. How do our thoughts affect our own happiness level as a hypnotherapist and life coach? It's what is that power that we have that we can enhance and benefit ourselves and others. So I thought, well, what is it like? There's, like the lights inside of us. I always think of that, the images of Jesus with the light, the lit up heart, and that spark is here, and that spark is there, and we are just like everything, just like the universe, just like creation. There was the Word, and then it's so. And something about, I just want to add the idea about manifesting, and I've talked to you maybe about, the simple thing of spoon bending, which I haven't spent a lot of time trying to do it without holding it. But the idea that the focus, you can hold the spoon, you can call an energy, direct it in there, and then the magic step is wanting it and then letting go. And I love that term, let go and let God. You put it in the vortex, you put your energy into the desire, and then you allow it to happen. And noticing the actual difference in the material of the spoon, and it becomes easy to bend. So I love that as a physical evidence of this process. It doesn't mean that I understand it any better necessarily, but simply that it is true, it is there, and it's within us. And so that was my presentation. I open it up to conversation. Any questions? I probably don't know the answers, but I'd love to hear what everyone thinks about this process.
Well, thank you so much for a wonderful presentation, Desiree, and bring this the different planes together. Because not only is it cosmic energy, so how can we use it? So I'm opening up, and Sue is the first. So as always, remember you can just unmute yourself. I'm watching the participants list, or if you prefer, you can raise your hand, and I will know. In which order. So, Sue, go ahead.
So excellent, Desiree. Very good. Very interesting. Just wonderful. I just wanted to ask you where you got the charts, the electromagnetic signature of thought, or those.
I just stole those off of Google. So I should have found that, noted the website or something. But I Googled electromagnetic charts or electromagnetism of the body, and I just borrowed. So I hope the owner of wherever I stole that from, they're all over the place, but yeah, I just Googled, and I liked that one in particular.
Oh, excellent. And there were a couple of an idea. Yeah, no, I'd love to see, I'll look into it because science is validating what we kind of know.
Absolutely.
And then also you did great with bringing in black holes. And I think science is also needing to expand their definition of black holes instead of being the dying star, but more also the beginnings of things too. So very good. Thank you.
Thank you. On the black holes, the thing I read just made me feel like black holes. I'm like, that sounds like a black hole. It's cold, but it's hot, but it's losing volume, but it's condensing. And I'm like, gee, that just sounds like black hole. And on one side is the end, and on the other side is the beginning. Like they say, every end is a new beginning. So it's just that it's a fascinating topic that we just don't understand.
Yes, I did like the charge, but I also like the way you pulled all this information together from the Secret Doctrine, because it's such an important concept. Who would like to, who has any questions? Do we have any other? I don't see anybody unmuted. Ed, did you want to go ahead? You said you had, Rosie. Rosie, go ahead.
Unless Ed has something to say. Okay, I'll give you a minute, Ed. Desiree, when you were reading the excerpts from Madame Blavatsky talking about Fohat one of the ideas that came to mind for me are the quantum experiments. You know, they're rather well known. I won't explain very well, but you know, the idea that as they were doing these quantum experiments, it was the observer, that it was the observation that determined whether something materialized as either a particle or a wave. And I remember when I was reading about these experiments, it was so fascinating to me because in my mind, I thought, well, that sort of illustrates how human consciousness sort of manifests our own perception of reality. It's like this particle or this wave manifests out of the Laya state. It seems to come out of nowhere. But I thought, you know, in my mind, I was thinking as an individual, is that like, I guess it's consciousness, but I think what the excerpts from Madame Blavatsky kind of introduced Fohat as sort of that generating force that causes that process to perhaps take place at a cosmic level. And particularly, I always find discussion of the Laya point so fascinating because that is sort of that point, that tipping point between our manifested reality and perhaps the astral or the other levels. I know there are Laya points in between. And similarly, we know that Fohat manifests on each of the different levels in a different way. So I guess I don't have a question, but the way that, you know, the black hole was what sort of came to mind for you. The idea of the quantum world is what came to mind for me, and how Fohat perhaps works through that process.
Yeah, I love that experiment. If you got, most of you are probably familiar with it, but it's the double slit experiment. And I think it was done in the 50s even, and still people are acting, you know, now we're like realizing it's true. But I do love that. And I often thought of that myself too. I thought, well, is it because they expected, you know, was it their thought of expectation that they're going to see a wave or a particle? But even when the human observer wasn't there, if they had a camera watching, it's sort of like, you know, the watch pot won't boil. As soon as you turn around, it's like, oh, there it is, right? As long as you're watching, it doesn't happen. So even when they put a camera without a human observer, it still had the effect of the observer. And of course, is that like one step away because they knew, that somehow the person watching what the camera recorded, you know, so even if they weren't in the room, the process was affected by the observation. But of course, how do you know if you're not observing it? But it's definitely one of those things that is like, I don't know. It is a wave and it is a particle, you know. It's whatever you want it to be, right? So that's one way of thinking about it.
Well, please, if you want to, if you want to ask a question, unmute yourself. Rosie, did you want to add something to that?
Well, I will say I thought another very interesting point is the discussion about electricity and magnetism and electromagnetism. I remember HPB mentioning in the Secret Doctrine, and this is very true, that, you know, humans, we know about electricity. Our scientists know about electricity and how to use it and how to manifest it, but we don't know what it is. And that's still true. And my thought is, you know, we talk about electromagnetism, but my impression is that it's electricity and magnetism are the exact same thing. So I think that electromagnetism, similar to Fohat, I guess it's just a manifestation of Fohat, is something that we would probably all benefit from meditating or investigating more. HBB seems to point to that. There's a mystery there.
Yeah. Something I wanted to bring up that I just have the image in my brain. When it showed the Earth and the field around the Earth, electromagnetic field. And I'm sure some of you have seen the image of a person with their, I thought I had a slide of the aura, but I guess I didn't put it up there. But I think I was looking at it last night and then it didn't add new slides, but talking about the aura around a person and the different layers of how it comes out it's like from inner to outer, and then you have your shell, but we each have our own electromagnetic field just like that around our bodies. And again, another example of macrocosm, microcosm is that our electromagnetic field does the same thing. And it had that little thing about like different frequencies of emotion or thought. Fear is very small and love is very big. Love goes about 3 feet out. They can measure the electromagnetic field of love about 3 feet out from you. Whereas if you're, the lesser and lower, emotions and thoughts, the more closed in your field is. So that's also an interesting thing about interactions and how we affect others around us and the people around us and the world around us. And of course, I had this thought too, which was sort of like higher level crazy conspiracy thought. And I'm like, why do they want people 6 feet apart? Because if love is 3 feet out, then your love was never going to touch each other. Because it's 3 feet and 3 feet. But so there's an important part about human interaction, though, is that our electromagnetic fields of love are important to share with each other, even if you don't know the person, to have that energetic exchange that is unfortunately something that's missing for a while here.
Very nice. Thank you for bringing that up. So I have 2 more, Adrian and then Albert. So Adrian, you go first. You unmuted first and then Albert goes next. Adrian, go ahead.
Wonderful presentation. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
This is very complicated. Don't really know what to say, but I wanted to say something rather now than think later I didn't say anything. I was excited about this discussion because I realized that Fohat in some way has to deal with the very being. And very being is what we are. We're caught up in, and we're living it daily. And I'm also excited that you had the perspective that you shared with us, because like you and all who are gathered, been interested in the relationship of our experiences to self. And just reviewing, because I don't know very much about Fohat, but we're reviewing it just through the wiki pages, and I said, the term is used throughout all of the ideas that we have about being, and it's not even being because we don't want to say that it exists, but it is. And okay, I'm getting close to where I want to go, is that we as individuals want to cleave to ourselves, to our humanity, in such a way that we have, in a sense, mechanized the world to be appropriated to ourselves. And yet when I was reading about Fohat, in a sense, in what Blavatsky was saying, it was taking me out of myself. It was trying to pull me back into a transcendent, not caring about my relationship to the radiator, although I know it's a becoming, the universe is unfolding, and I find myself in the living room. I find myself here. Okay, erase all that, and this is the question I want to ask you, which has nothing to do with that, is I also saw that there was something called Kundalini. Mm-hmm. And I imagine you know something about that. Mm-hmm. And I was wondering, do you see any relationship to Fohat and Kundalini? And if so, can you enlighten us a little bit about the Kundalini experiences that some of us must have shared in or experienced?
I'll tell you what, I'm not an expert in Kundalini, although I know enough to know that that's definitely Fohat would be connected with that, especially going up through the body and the energetic centers. But maybe Suzanne with yoga, you could explain that, or is someone else more familiar?
Well, I don't know when I think of Kundalini, I think of the energy going up from the first chakra up to the seventh chakra. I also think of Leadbeater, who warned us, saying that we should be really careful when we try to work with this force, because we need to be purified first before we can try to work with the Kundalini force. Because if we don't do it right, there's a lot of things that can go wrong physically. I read a book, it was unfortunately in German, but I know it exists in English, by a Swami, Gosvinanda, I think was his name, who wrote about this. It took him, I think, 10 years to get over these problems. But I think Fohat is an energy that can be applied in different ways. So I hope this answers your question to a certain degree. I just wanted to give a chance, because we're getting to the end of the time, to Albert and then Barbara. Albert, what was? Did you have a specific question?
Can I just add something to that before you
sure.
go?
Ed.
What I want to add to that is that while you were talking about being pure before you do that, because it is quite a strong energetic process apparently, but the idea that, like, what you put into the vortex, that Fohat will amplify it. So what you were saying, if you're not pure, if you're not clean, and don't have all good in there, it could amplify, apparently, probably, what you don't want. So it's that occurred to me, that so what you were just saying, to make sure that you're putting what you want into it before you enhance it and turn on the switch, you want to make sure that you've got the right material.
Yeah.
So Desiree, real quick, so you're saying we are able to manipulate Fohat, and not that Fohat is manipulating us?
I think it's a partnership, yes, but mostly that our minds, our thoughts, our emotions can combine with Fohat, and Fohat will, I think it's just going to happen. It's going to happen anyway, right? Fohat exists. This energy is flowing through us. And if we are bringing in negativity, then Fohat's going to bring, materialize negativity for us. If we are bringing in positivity, Fohat's going to materialize positivity. I also do believe in precipitations or manifestations. And I've had too many examples of materializations where it couldn't just be chance. Oh, you just happen to see it because you're aware of it. So I'm always asking for pennies. I'm like, angels, deities, whatever you are, energy, Fohat, send me pennies so I am reminded that you are here. I just love playing the game. I think I got it from The Secret. And so I find pennies almost every day. And sometimes I go for a dry period, and I have found like a pile of 20 pennies on the sidewalk twice, and I'm like, well, here they are. It is just so fun. It's kind of just a fun process to ask for the pennies, and there they are. I go to my car, there's one in front of my car. So it's a fun kind of game to play with, asking and having it manifest. So yeah, I think it's a partnership, and I think that's why we really need to be aware and intentional on our thoughts, our energies, and our feelings.
Very well said. I completely agree that it's this kind of. Okay, Albert, go ahead.
First, I want to say, Desiree, that was a very beautiful presentation, especially about the wavelengths, the frequencies, which is something that I really need to study more. But what I wanted to ask is, first, I want to say that months ago, Julia shared with us some pages from Dora Van Gelder's book on personal auras. And on there, she had the different images, different auras due to ailments or people going through various things. Now, she did this as a clairvoyant, but couldn't it also be looked at just an extension of your senses? For instance, we can see between 4,000 and 75 or 8,000 hertz, but maybe people with this ability can see on extended edges of these frequencies, so they can actually see what appears to be clairvoyant illnesses or it just, how much of that is really clairvoyant or an extension of your senses to be able to see that?
I think I came across a part when I was reading quotes by Blavatsky about that, and she says that some people can see it. She goes, everyone has the ability, but they need to train themselves, and it is like, it's just like that range of light that you can see, that human sight. But it's like some people are able to enhance, by practice, enhance their abilities to see it. And actually, if you're interested, there are, you could probably find on YouTube or Google, there are these practices where you can try to learn to see an aura. And one of them is you just look at your hand and you kind of don't focus, and you'll start to see shape, light and color coming out from the edges. But we're running out of time. Maybe I'll explain that some other time. But yes, we all have the power of seeing it, but some people it comes more naturally, and other people can learn it. But she did say something like, most of us, that even the clairvoyants, even those who have the natural power, can only see like maybe the first one or two layers. But usually it's very difficult unless it's an adept to see all of it.
Very good question. Thank you, Albert. And here is this book, and you can maybe see it here. On the front page, there's this beautiful aura, and she talks about this. So yes, absolutely. Barbara, let's go ahead. You're the last one. Go ahead.
Thank you, Desiree. I would love to have a copy of those two with about bodies are vibrating and the emotions, because I think of Fohat as the force that supports energy. Energy is the vibration that supports matter. So I love the way you brought that into the human body, and that all these different vibrations. And when we talk about the Kundalini, I think of that when I don't know which study it was, but you think of it as a serpent coiled down at the base chakra, and it rises going this way, which is the best way to raise your vibrations. So the Kundalini, when you start evolving in consciousness, you raise that Kundalini, and that's where those different vibrations come from. So that's why I really liked your paper on that, your graph on the vibration, because one of the most interesting books I read, and I thought it was really strange, it was by Bailey, and it talks about the mystery of Golgotha. And it said the reason Jesus had to come to earth, he was a very vibrational human being, and the earth plane had stopped vibrating. The creative forces felt like we needed a shock of vibration, because we were starting to lose the ability to keep vibrating higher to support our consciousness that was coming. So the whole idea of her book of the mystery of Golgotha is he had to spread his blood on the earth plane so the earth matter could handle more vibration as man's consciousness continued to evolve.
Interesting.
That's why I loved your drawings of the different vibrations of what goes on in the human body. I thought that was great.
Well, let's see. I could share the PowerPoint, I think, with you. Suzanne, can I do that? And then you can share it too.
Yeah, and then because it's public domain, it's probably best if we do that unlisted, but I'll send the link and then everybody can watch. And thank you so much for all the things you shared. I just want to say Betty Bland had to leave, and she said an excellent application of an esoteric principle. And Susan said John Kunz was bring to tune his shortwave radio, but was having problems. He had his mother, Dora, who could see the wave and helped. So that's interesting. Yeah, she was, Dora Kunz was, from Gelder Kunz was amazing. Great abilities. And Ria said, thanks, enjoyed that. And then, anyhow, so thank you so much for joining. Next